Hello, insecure little boys. I'd like to inform you that I have had more sexual partners than you. I did more drugs than you. I've been in more fights than you. I've never been married. I wonder why. I was a single mother. My child is a better person than you. I'm smarter than you. I'm more of a badass than you. And so is she. And I'm still more high value than you. While you're sulking in that basement, throwing out ran through and slut insults that you think will hurt women's feelings, we're living our best lives. You're pitiful and jealous, and that's why women don't like you. Learn how to be a man or fall by the wayside, forever pouting and lashing out. Your internet bros are wrong. Why does she think this a flex? It is often comical to me the continuity in the language and vernacular women use, especially if they're of a lower quality than the majority, certainly. And I wanted to kind of highlight a couple of not just verbiage, but physical traits that I believe you should be staying far away from, corresponding to whether or not an individual is worthy or not for you to bring into a relationship. Now, this word insecure seems to crop up a lot for me in my estimation. That's the first one that I picked up on here. Where is it now? Where is it now? Oh, well, it's just starting off. Hello, insecure little boys. Now, this terminology is typically used as a cope to lessen the consequences of an individual's actions. And this particular word is used in relation to an individual perhaps being disgusted, which is the correct synonym, in relation to the promiscuity, in relation to how many sexual partners that woman has had. So yes, the notion that a man is insecure about multiple sexual partners makes a woman feel better ultimately about her choices, when the real adverb is typically disgust. And that disgust reflex is built into our very biology, our psychology, because the context of paternity, so the paternity argument I'm sure you're all familiar with, is essentially if a woman has been with one sexual partner comparatively to 100, it is far more likely that you're going to have certainty of your child if she's just had one partner prior to you, comparatively to if she's had 100 different sexual partners. Now, I suppose modern technology can help us dispel or lessen the heaviness of that particular argument, but you're not getting away from it being built into our bones, into our very DNA. And also, you need to include the increased risk of disease and infection in these individuals. And disease and infection is what is screaming out to me, Lizzie Stardust, disease and infection. The second term I want to introduce you to, and one that you should be familiar with if you have any understanding of psychology, is psychological projection, which essentially denotes that a lot of this is a projection and maybe a jealousy on part of other women who are more valuable than her. So jealous of younger and more modest women who are picking up high quality men and getting into long-lasting, supportive and compassionate relationships, where she's furious that few men want to propose this kind of monogamy, this kind of exclusivity, this kind of protection and providing. The ones that do, however, promote or propose this kind of relationship quickly realize that this is a absolutely horrific and monumentally damning exchange of values, and either cheat on Lizzie or leave her very, very soon after. And some particular examples that kind of grab out to me: no high value individual needs that high value validated, and nobody living their best lives needs to say it. And I typically feel like this is a cry for attention and some kind of compassion and some kind of love, because the consequences of her decisions are very large. Now, I think it's really important for me to say that you're allowed to do whatever you want in this world, but that doesn't mean that you are free from consequence. I can go out and have the freedom to call the first person I meet on the street a vulgar adverb, but it's not going to free me from the consequences of getting my face bashed in by that same person. In the same way, you need to make intelligent decisions if you want intelligent and positive outcomes in your life. And one of the latter points is this horrendously deluded notion that the dictation of value is not the individual, but it's via the collective. So essentially, the delusion is that an individual can dictate their own value. Well, of course, this is not true. This is true. The market dictates the value always. Nothing decides its own value, especially if it is contrary to the collective. So, look, if you're on a dating app and an individual says they have children, apparently that particular characteristic is one of the number one reasons men swipe left, or they don't want to date a woman that has a child. It is not valuable. It is work. It is baggage. And we fundamentally would never take a single woman comparatively, a single mother, comparatively to a woman that hasn't had a child yet. They're not valuable, and that's maybe not valuable isn't the correct way to describe it, but it's not valuable to somebody who is seeking perhaps their own family or a monogamous relationship. I'm sure your children are valuable in the eyes of you, in the eyes of perhaps the father that had better things to do than support his children. But to the dating market, it is not valuable. Promiscuity. And I wanted to go into more nuance here because I know that you're probably sick and tired, as I am, of promiscuity just being thrown out as a particular characteristic that is unconducive to a quality relationship. But the reasons behind it, the ramifications behind it, is that it has a damning impact on trust and disgust. So trust meaning it is very, very difficult or near to impossible to erase impressions in the mind. Meaning if an individual has had multiple partners, and I mean this for men and women, then you're always going to compare. Your comparison is going to be larger, and your capacity to be ungrateful, breed resentment in the relationship, and then cheat as a consequence of your past is far more likely than somebody who is just grateful for the one partner that they've already had. In that way, knowledge, or let's say greater experience of the dating market can ruin you. And disgust, of course, comparatively to the mitigations of sexual disease, infection, exchanging of DNA and fluids. Yeah, it's not pleasant. And the history of infidelity, I for one would find it enormously difficult to even consider bringing a woman into my life if she has a history of infidelity. Rather poetically, the past tells you a lot about the future. Somebody's been unfaithful in the past. It is easy to repeat that behavior comparatively if they had never had experience with infidelity. Now, I wanted to introduce a interesting word. Physiognomy. A person's facial features or expression, especially when regarded as indicative of a character or ethnic origin. I suppose more accurately, in my understanding it, is the general form of appearance or something typically denotes more than one would consider. You hear this phrase often, don't judge a book by its cover. I think that's naive. I think the sentiment from which it proceeds is a morally upstanding one, but I don't believe it's true. And one of the characteristics that perhaps would have us run away or decide not to introduce somebody into our relationship is based on their appearance and certain metrics in that appearance. So for me, masculine features, prominent brow, bones, and chins is indicative of higher levels of testosterone, more combative, more masculine, and masculine energy in excess is not something that is typically successful in a relationship if you want to play that role. Colored hair, I don't feel like I should have to explain this one, but it is a very obvious and tragic cry for attention, in my personal opinion, whenever I see somebody with green hair, pink hair, white hair, like that's dyed, multicolored hair, rainbow hair. It just screams to me, notice me, notice me, notice me, notice me, please, 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 please. And that is the last thing I want in my life. Excessive piercings. Now I'm dashing a little bit of my color in here because a lot of red pill men, or a lot of men who are very, let's say, red pill extremists, would say absolutely no piercings. But I've had two very good relationships with women in the past who have had piercings, not excessive piercings. I mean, they haven't looked like a sieve or anything like that, but they've had piercings. And I've had piercings before. I've got rid of my piercings. I don't wear any piercings now. And I don't think it's the exceptions exist. It's not the rule. That's really important. And I typically don't enjoy short hair on women. I think it makes you look more masculine and maybe more boyish, and it's typically not indicative of the classical kind of feminine aesthetics that I like when I am picking a partner. So whereas the sentiment behind not judging a book by its cover is a nice one, tell me, what is your initial reflex when you look at some of these eyes here? Should we not take this information and not integrate it into how we should behave as a consequence of this? For example, if you saw a woman with this kind of eyes here, don't walk away, run. These eyes have a psychotic tendencies. This is probably indicative of that 100 body stare that a lot of women have when they have, they do not value sex, purity, sanctity, all of these things. And they might transition towards the southern eyes here when they recognize, or they start making Twitter posts like the one here, and they realize that, the market doesn't value your being a badass. It doesn't value you being in more fights. It doesn't value you doing more drugs. We just think you're immature, repulsive, disgusting, and you have a lot of inner healing to do fundamentally. And I don't believe these are theories today, gentlemen. I believe they're cold, hard facts. Speak soon.